Hello, and welcome to GSA's Enterprise Infrastructure Solutions Delegation of Procurement Authority Self-Paced Training. This course is worth 1.5 Continuous Learning Points, or CLPs, but in order to receive those CLPs, you will be required to take the associated quiz and receive a 70% or better. The quiz is available by selecting the Take a Quiz for CLP button that is located underneath this presentation on IT Acquisition University. Completion certificates will be issued to everyone who has passed the quiz with a 70% or better. My name is Janita Borba, and I'm with the Office of Information Technology category of FAS. I have been with GSA since 2006. I'm one of the EIS contracting officers, and I also serve as the backup CO for the EIS PCO. Upon completion of this course, you should be able to describe the Enterprise Solutions program at a high level, describe FAR 16505 requirements for task orders under EIS, identify the role of the ordering contracting officer, or OCO, or the authorized official, and understand the purpose of the DPA, the Delegation of Procurement Authority. So let's get right into our first topic area, which is the introduction to the EIS program. What is EIS all about? This slide provides high-level information about EIS. EIS consists of a set of multiple award IDIQ contracts that have been awarded to 9 vendors. EIS provides a comprehensive way to access telecommunications and IT solutions from top providers. The second bullet tells us that the EIS program allows agency OCOs and other authorized officials to issue task orders against EIS, but only once they have been issued a signed Delegation of Procurement Authority letter from a GSA contracting officer. So we're all familiar with contracting officers, but what about an authorized official? Well, not all organizations will have a warranted contracting officer, but we'll still need to use the EIS contract. So GSA has provided a way to address this. An authorized official is an individual from an entity without a warranted contracting officer. To be recognized as an authorized official, that individual must provide supporting documentation to GSA reflecting this assignment. This documentation must state that that individual has been granted the authority to issue task orders on behalf of their agency or organization. Additionally, in order to use EIS, that each person will have to complete this DPA training and be issued a DPA letter. Now, the final bullet on the slide tells us that the EIS contracts were awarded in FY17 and that EIS period of performance will end on July 30, 2032 if all the options are exercised. Task orders cannot have a period of performance beyond July 30, 2032. That is a hard stop date. What governs GSA's authority? Title 40 of the United States Code, Section 501 and 501 and 502 governs GSA's authority to provide supplies and non-personal services to executive branch agencies and other entities outside of the executive branch. EIS is specifically governed under 40 U.S.C. 501, and the GSA contracts are not subject to the Economy Act. EIS offers telecommunications services in the 12 service areas listed on this slide. Each of these 12 service areas have specific telecommunications services and features that are available under the EIS contract. So the services are data services, voice services, contact center services, co-located hosting services, cloud services, wireless services, commercial satellite services, managed services, access arrangements, service-related equipment, service-related labor, and cable and wiring. We'll actually take a look at these services and their service areas later in the presentation. So who can use EIS? In order to be eligible to use EIS, both of these criteria have to be met. The first one, all federal agencies and authorized contract users have to be listed in GSA's Office of Government Policy OGP letter number 4800.2I, which is the eligibility to use GSA sources of supplies and services letter. And an OCO or authorized official, after they have completed this training, have applied and received their signed DPA letter from GSA, they would then be eligible to issue task orders against EIS. The next two slides list several advantages of the EIS program. While I won't read each of these bullets, there are a couple that I want to highlight. So the first one being speed. Since EIS provides fully competed contracts, this provides a clear advantage to the federal government and will greatly reduce the procurement lead time compared to each agency going through the process of establishing their own open market contracts. The second one being the cost. So although there is a charge of 4.75% for each agency to use EIS, EIS costs less than the current telecommunications contract network, which the fee there is 7%. So this will provide some government-wide savings. The other advantage I like to focus on is flexibility. So later in our discussion, we will present ways which EIS not only accommodates fixed price task orders, but it also provides for creative options for agencies to customize solutions, by offering unique Cleanse contract line item numbers that can address a wide array of potential agency requirements. The other advantage, and the last advantage on this page I'd like to focus on, is the inventory and billing data. So EIS provides a web-based system that is used for billing and inventory data, and that's at no additional cost to the agencies. Again, I won't read all of the advantages listed on this slide, but EIS has a 15-year term, and many services on EIS are already priced. I'd also like to point out bullet 3, expansive scope includes telecom and IT solutions as well as converged solutions. So let's talk briefly about what a converged solution is. A converged solution is a way to group a variety of IT and telecommunications services together under one umbrella. So one way to think about convergence is how communication networks that were once independent and standalone are now able to use just a single network. So today it's very common to have voice, data, and video networks all using a single physical network for transport. EIS allows you to procure all those services as well as the service-related equipment and the service-related labor needed in order to provide a one-stop shop for all your telecom needs. I'd also like to emphasize bullet 4, additional services and support, such as labor. So labor may be included when these services are associated with an infrastructure or telecommunications solution acquired through EIS. So you would not be able to use EIS just to procure labor by itself. But if your agency has a requirement for labor, or key personnel as it relates to a telecom solution and or service, you can request labor. So EIS has created service-related labor Cleanse that you can use. And information about all those Cleanse is available under EIS and can be found in Section B of the EIS contracts. You can access the EIS contracts by the EIS agency pricer, and I will show you how to request that access. We'll now begin topic number 2, the EIS Terms and Conditions. We're going to look at how the EIS contract is structured and what is included. Some of the key features of EIS. EIS has a $15 billion program ceiling, and it is structured with a 5-year base period and 2 5-year option periods. So the EIS fixed prices will be adjusted at each option period. So EIS contains an economic price adjustment, price refreshment clause that's found in Section H19 of the EIS contract. This section informs us that GSA intends to conduct an economic price adjustment for all the prices currently on contract prior to the exercise of each of the contract option periods. So the EIS base period ends in July of 2022, and option 1 period, if renewed, ends in July of 2027. The contractors will submit revised pricing 6 months prior to the end of each option period. The economically adjusted prices will be determined based on a Bureau of Labor Statistics indices. So the prices may result in either a price increase or a price decrease. The vendor's revised prices cannot be above these economically adjusted prices. And for complete details of this process, please refer to section H19 of the EIS contract. This table depicts several EIS contract features. The North American Industry Classification System code for EIS is 517311. We can also see the program ceiling of $50 billion. We have already discussed the terms of the contract, the task order period performance, and the 4.75% fee. Let's focus here on the task order types. The only allowable task order types under EIS are fixed price with economic price adjustment and or time and materials. So you can have a hybrid combination of those. However, you may not have a firm fixed price task order under EIS. I'd like to stress that because we have seen several solicitations that include firm fixed price. You may not have a firm fixed price task order under EIS. The minimum task order threshold is $1 and the maximum threshold is $1 billion. So EIS vendors are not required to honor orders over $1 billion, but that is at the vendor's discretion. Small business individual subcontracting plans were required at the contract level, so therefore they cannot be asked for at the task order level. So also the GSA goals will be monitored at the contract level. The agency may ask for goals at the task order level, but those goals may not conflict with the EIS goals that were already asked for at the contract level. Let's take a look at how the Trade Agreement Act and the Buy American Act impact EIS. We have included the following 3 clauses, which are listed on the slide. So allow me to focus your attention on the first bullet and each of the 2 sub-bullets under the first bullet. So the first sub-bullet means that any service-related equipment, or SRE, that is provided as part of a telecommunications service is not subject to the TAA or BAA. Next, SREs provided under an installment plan are also not subject to TAA and BAA. So EIS contains a variety of SRE installment term options that are available to the agencies. So please review Section B of the EIS contract for the complete details on those installment term options. The TAA and the BAA clauses are only applicable if the government decides to take ownership and is purchasing that SRE at the end of their installment term. So at that point, the OCO or authorized official is required to determine whether the BAA and the TAA applies in accordance with FAR Part 25.4, which is the trade agreement section of the FAR. So please refer to the FAR for further details. In the previous section, we listed 12 service areas on the EIS contracts. On this chart, we can see each of the 12 service areas listed on the left-hand side and the specific services corresponding to each area on the right-hand side. We won't take time to read these, but this chart can be used as a quick reference for the 12 service areas and corresponding services offered under the EIS contracts. For more specific details on which vendors are offering each service, you can do a search in the EIS agency pricer. So you can get information on obtaining access to the agency pricer by visiting the EIS webpage, gsa.gov/EIS. So information about obtaining the agency pricer access can be found on the right-hand side. So a little bit beyond the middle of the page, you see the agency pricer link. If you go there, you'll get information on how to access the agency pricer and how to request access. And as you can see, this site has a ton of information on EIS. So I would recommend that you visit this site to familiarize yourself with EIS. It is also the site you would go to request your DPA. So the DPA is requested by selecting the Delegation of Procurement Authority link on the left-hand side. And we'll cover that further down in the presentation. I will provide all the steps on how to obtain a DPA further in the presentation. Mandatory services under EIS. So the term mandatory services just means that in order for a contractor to have been awarded an EIS contract, they had to provide at least these 4 mandatory services, which are Virtual Private Network Services, VPNS, Ethernet, Voice, Managed Network Service. And all the other services were optional for the EIS contractors to propose, meaning they did not have to offer any other optional service. Today, many of the EIS contract holders have most of the optional services on contract, and they're adding more services to accommodate the agency solicitations. So please use a pricer to see a complete list of the services offered by each vendor. If a contractor does not have a service on their contract and desires to compete for a solicitation that contains a service that they do not have, they must first submit a contract modification to GSA in order to add that service to their contract. And that mod has to be fully executed before an agency can award and before a vendor can accept a task or award requiring that service that they lack. The first 2 services under are VPNS and Ethernet, and they're both services from the data services area. Voice service is a standalone service and includes 4 voice options, which is IP voice, circuit switch voice service, circuit switch data service, and toll-free service. And then the managed network service is one of the services offered in the managed network services area. EIS uses core-based statistical areas to define geographic coverage under EIS. So CBSAs are geographic areas in the U.S. with 10,000 or more people. At the time of the EIS award, there were 929 CBSAs available. Let's highlight the second bullet. So although contractors only had to propose the 4 mandatory services in 25 of the top 100 CBSAs to have won the award, most contractors have now added all 929 CBSAs to their contracts. And for the contractors that do not have all the CBSAs, they have the option to continue to add CBSAs. Again, if you want specific information, all this can be found in the agency pricer. The last bullet is extremely important. There have even been task order protests under EIS in regards to this clause. So an OCO may not award and an EIS contractor may not accept a task order if the CBSA or the service requested does not first exist on that contractor's EIS contract. So the contractor will first need to submit a modification with those CLINs, those services, those CBSAs to GSA, and that mod needs to be fully executed before an award can be made. So the OCO's DPA and ability to use EIS can be revoked if this clause is not adhered to. Let's take a look at task order scope. What can be included in the scope of a task order? So task orders can be customized to meet a full range of an agency's telecom and IT needs. So EIS can be used to establish a complete telecom network, including any of the services offered on the contract. It may also include the ancillary non-telecommunications or IT components like the service-related labor and the service-related equipment. Next, we're going to discuss ways which EIS has created the ability for agencies to tailor or customize task orders to meet unique requirements. So the next 3 slides will define each of these CLINs listed on the slide, which are the individual case basis CLINs, the ICB Cleanse, the task order unique CLINs, which are the TUC CLINs, and the catalog item CLINs. The ICB CLINs are unique only in terms of price and individual details. So the service to be priced is already specified and defined on the EIS contract, but additional information is needed in order to determine a specific price for the individual case as it relates to a specific agency requirement on their task order. So for example, to order an OC12 access, a contractor would need to know more details, such as the location, and they need to obtain other information from the local exchange carrier in order to accurately price a particular instance of that service. What's really important here is all ICB CLINs. It's the OCO or the authorized official's responsibility to determine these prices fair and reasonable. These CLINs will only exist under the agency task order and not the EIS contract. So, therefore, a mod to the contractor's EIS contract is not required. TUC CLINs. So, task order unique CLINs, they are pre-established CLINs available under each service category in Section B of the EIS contract. And they serve as placeholders until the agency defines a custom requirement, or they can request that the offeror propose a custom solution to a unique agency requirement by using a TUC CLIN. TUCs can be used for 2 reasons. As mentioned above, to define a custom solution not otherwise defined under EIS, or to combine multiple CLINs under a single overarching CLIN, and that's usually done for billing purposes. So these CLINs are not defined under EIS, but as I previously stated, EIS has developed TUC CLINs under each service category, and agencies must use the EIS established TUC CLINs from the EIS contract. They may not create their own TUC CLINs. If you visit Section B of the EIS contract, you will see that for each service category, there is a TUC already, a TUC CLIN already predefined there, or pre-established, not defined, it's pre-established. So if an agency wanted to use a service-related labor CLIN that did not exist on EIS, then the agency could define the labor category as it relates to a service requirement, and they could use the service-related labor TUC CLIN from the EIS contract, and that can be found in Section B of the solicitation. Another important thing to mention here in regards to TUCs, just like the ICB CLIN, it is the OCO's responsibility to determine if the TUC prices are fair and reasonable. The TUC will only exist on the task order, and a modification to the EIS contract is not required. Here's another example of when you may want to use a TUC CLIN. So in this example, let's say the agency has a requirement for a vendor to propose the allowable taxes, fees, and surcharges, and they would like that proposed as a separate CLIN. Since there isn't a CLIN defined on EIS for taxes, fees, and surcharges, then the agency would use a general TUC CLIN if they want the vendor to propose that. According to Section H23 of the EIS contract, the allowable taxes, fees, and surcharges can be priced in 2 ways. An agency can ask for a vendor to propose a separate CLIN for the allowable taxes, fees, or surcharges, or they can ask that those prices be fully loaded into the CLIN price of each service required on that task order. So we do not recommend the latter since you would lose visibility of the allowable taxes, fees, and surcharges, but that option is available. In both instances, you would actually use a TUC CLIN. So if the agency would like the vendor to fully load the allowable taxes, fees, and surcharges into the CLIN price for the services that are required, then the agency would use the TUC CLINs that are already pre-established under each particular service category found in Section B of the EIS contract. They would not use a general TUC. The only time they would use a general TUC is if they're asking for the allowable taxes, fees, and surcharges to be priced as a separate CLIN, and also for the service-related equipment. So there is not a service-related equipment TUC CLIN established on the contract. So in that instance, they would also use a general TUC. This slide includes 3 general TUC CLINs available. So there's a TUC CLIN established for a non-reoccurring charge, one for the monthly reoccurring charge, and one for a usage charge. And it'd be up to the agency to select the one that best fits the requirement. So EIS allows for certain items and services not on contract to be sold through contractor catalogs. An example of a catalog item is service-related equipment. Another example would be cloud services. So prices for individual items and services sold on the vendor catalogs have not been found fair and reasonable. This is, again, the responsibility of the OCO or the authorized official. For catalog CLINs, so EIS has negotiated class discounts for each catalog item CLIN. Catalogs exist on each contractor's website. The EIS website contains a link to the vendor's catalog. So if you want to get information on the vendor's catalog, please visit the EIS website. And the last bullet just emphasizes what I have already said, that for each of these special CLINs, ICB, TUC, and catalog CLINs, the OCO or authorized official is responsible for determining these prices are fair and reasonable. Let's take a brief look at the scope review process. GSA requires that all solicitations over the simplified acquisition threshold undergo an in-scope review and be accepted by GSA before the agency can release that solicitation to the EIS contractors. Solicitations are submitted through the EIS Network Hosting Center, or NHC. So instructions for getting access to this tool can be found on the EIS webpage. GSA will review solicitations to ensure they are within technical scope, that they conform to the EIS pricing structure, and that they are within the EIS contracting terms and conditions. Solicitations must be submitted in a Word document. And the reason for this is GSA will incorporate our comments and recommendations by using track changes in a Word document, and we'll submit it back to the agency through the NHC scope review tool once it has been determined in scope. Although many of the comments may just be recommendations, it will be very beneficial to incorporate them, as they will improve the quality of your solicitations and hopefully will limit the amount of questions that you receive from the agencies. Here are some common errors to avoid when creating your solicitation. If some of these are included in your task order solicitations, the solicitations may actually be rejected, which will only delay the review. EIS does not allow firm fixed price task orders. The only allowable task orders under EIS are fixed price with EPA and/or time and materials. EIS is a non-commercial contract. Therefore, commercial task orders under EIS are unallowable. A common error we see is agencies including commercial clauses from FAR Part 12, or including like commercial solicitation forms. Again, subcontracting plans from the large businesses vendors were already provided for at the contract level. So the FAR actually prohibits an individual subcontracting plan at the task order level. Agencies are using terms like quote and bid in their solicitations, but they actually should be requesting proposals or offers. The terms proposal versus quote versus bid, they're not interchangeable. Clearly state what prices are to be included in the total evaluated price under your evaluation section, usually section M if you have this structured in the UCF. And you also want to state how the TEP, total evaluated price, is calculated. And the last bullet here, service level agreements, SLAs. So section G of the EIS contract already includes many SLAs and credits. So agencies should utilize the SLAs available to them from the EIS contract. Now, agencies may not create custom SLAs that conflict with EIS. However, if the SLA does not conflict with EIS, then you may create your own custom SLA. But please note that any requirement included in your task order that is above the EIS requirements will more than likely incur an additional price from the vendors. We'll now begin topic number 3, which is ordering from EIS. We're going to look specifically at what is included in the ordering process. This slide shows us a graphical depiction of the life cycle of a task order. So the phases are the planning phase, solicitation phase, fair opportunity and task order award phase, and administration phase. Each of the rectangles show the phases involved, and the list of activities associated within each phase is shown on the right-hand side of the rectangle. The arrows under each phase depict the flow of activity from one phase to the next. So completing the DPA training, that should be in the planning phase. This slide shows the role of the ordering contracting officer, or the OCO, and or the authorized official. These individuals are the controlling authorities on any procurement until the task order is closed out. So let's just read each responsibility for emphasis. So the responsibilities include complying with the terms and conditions of the EIS contract, the FAR, the applicable laws, and the agency guidance. Determining fair and reasonable prices for the catalog items, the TUCs, and the ICBs. Verifying and obligating funding, complying with appropriation law and financial policy, ensuring all contractors are provided a fair opportunity to be considered prior to award. We'll actually discuss that further in the presentation. And then awarding and administering the task orders. Once a task order is awarded, the OCO, or the authorized official, is responsible for managing and administering the task orders. And those responsibilities include assigning a contracting officer's representative, or CORE, and then designating the specific CORE responsibilities and extent of authority based on FAR and the agency requirements. Now, actually assigning a CORE is optional. But one thing to note, that under EIS, DARs do not exist. They do not exist. Only COREs exist. And CORE is a term based on, from the FAR. So other responsibilities include monitoring, evaluating contractor performance, entering performance data into PEPRs and other systems as required, entering the task order data into FPDS, responding to FOIA requests, protests, disputes, and claims, all at the task order level, ensuring prompt payment of the contractor invoices, administering the task order modifications, and performing task order closeout. If you're not familiar with FAR Part 16.505, I would recommend that you read that section in its entirety before developing your task order solicitation, because task orders under EIS are governed by FAR Subpart 16505. OCOs, or authorized officials, must provide a fair opportunity to all awardees in accordance with FAR 16.505. So FAR 16.505 states specific rules that must be followed depending on the dollar thresholds of your procurement. Additionally, a fair opportunity is required unless a specific statutory exception exists. So again, for more information on the fair opportunity process, please visit the FAR. And we have also developed some guidance, a fair opportunity and ordering guide. It describes the fair opportunity process as well as ordering information. And if you like more information on that, we encourage each of you to take the fair opportunity and ordering e-learning course that we have created at the link shown on the slide. This course also offers the CLP credit. This slide lists the items that are required on each task order on an IDIQ contract. So EIS is an IDIQ contract, so this is applicable to any task order awarded. So you must, FAR 16505A7 states that task orders must include these items listed on the screen. We'll just pause for a moment so you can look over each item. All orders under EIS must comply with the ordering procedures, again, that's found in FAR subpart 16.505. Once task orders are awarded, EIS allows service orders to be issued. So first, what is a service order? A service order is not a FAR term. It's actually a telecommunications term. And as stated on the slide, a service order is a request for initiating a service that has already been specified on your task order, or a request to change an existing service that also has already been specified on your task orders. So the important thing to note is that service orders must be in scope of your task orders. It cannot exceed the funding that was obligated on your task order, and may only be issued by an individual with written authority. So it is the OCO's responsibility, and if they assign a core, so either the OCO or the core can issue a service order. You cannot use a service order to order something that is not included in your task order. So let's take a look at the tools provided by GSA to help agencies place orders on EIS. So first, your one-stop shop for all things related to EIS is the EIS website. Then GSA encourages the use of eBuy to advertise solicitations to the EIS contractors. So eBuy is not mandatory. However, it is an option available if you'd like to solicit your solicitations on eBuy. The EIS contract is entered into eBuy. GSA has also produced helpful ordering guides like the Fair Opportunity and Ordering Guide that I have already mentioned, and the Management and Operations Handbook. Both of those guides are available on the EIS website. Finally, let's discuss GSA Solicitation Assistance Tool. This is an expert-driven software tool that is used to help prepare a draft solicitation. And that draft solicitation will be in the UCF format. If you use that tool to develop a draft solicitation, there's a lot of helpful documents embedded, things like the pricing worksheet, and there's a lot of helpful information written within that document that will help guide you in creating a solicitation under EIS. If you use the UCF format, that will help facilitate our scope review process. So we'll be able to review your solicitations a lot quicker if your solicitations are developed by using the UCF format. So here's just the final word, like when you're ready to order, make sure you follow the ordering procedures in FAR 16505. Make sure you develop an acquisition plan and all procurement-related documents. Make sure the order complies with the EIS requirements, and make sure that you include any applicable agency clauses that are necessary. Now, do not duplicate clauses that have already been included on the EIS contract. IDIQ clauses trickle down to the task orders, but be sure that you still include like your option clauses or your subject to availability of funds clauses and all applicable agency clauses as necessary. We'll now begin our final topic, which is the Delegation of Procurement Authority, DPA. We're going to look specifically at what is a DPA. A DPA is a GSA certification that enables an ordering contracting officer or authorized official to issue a task order under EIS, and it clearly establishes the roles and responsibilities between the GSA contracting officer and the OCO. Before any solicitation can be issued to the EIS contractors, agency OCOs or authorized officials must take this training, and they have to request and receive a DPA from a GSA contracting officer. We have talked about what an organization without contracting officers can do. So they must identify and appoint an authorized official. A copy of the letter appointing that person as the authorized official must be sent to the DPA email box, which is EIS_DPA@gsa.gov. And for any requesters that lack a .gov or .mil in their email address, GSA requires that a copy of your warrant be sent also to that DPA email box. This slide summarizes what must be done in order to obtain a DPA. So please pay close attention to the steps on this slide. So the first thing you need to do is successfully complete this DPA training. And that includes getting a 70% or better on the quiz at the end of this training. Then you would submit a copy of that training completion certification received to the DPA email box. So EIS_DPA@gsa.gov. Simultaneously, you need to go to the EIS website and submit your DPA by filling out a DPA request form. Now, filling out the request form is what actually transmits your application to the DPA tool for processing. So this is a very important step. And then the fourth bullet only applies if you are an authorized official or if you need to send your warrant to the EIS DPA website, email address, sorry. If any of these steps are omitted, GSA cannot issue you a DPA. We have covered everything in the first two bullets. So without a DPA, agencies will not be able to place orders under the EIS contract or release their solicitations. DPAs will remain in effect for the life of the contract, and agencies may have multiple OCOs or authorized officials, but each must have their own DPA. This slide depicts what the DPA letter looks like. This is just the first page. There's actually 3 pages of the DPA. So a sample copy of this letter can be found in section J.3 of the EIS contract. So you can see all 3 pages and the specific roles of the ordering contracting officer and the EIS contracting officer. Okay, so let's summarize. You should now be able to, at a very high level, describe the EIS program, Describe FAR 16505 requirements for task orders under EIS. Identify the role of the ordering contracting officer or authorized official, and understand the purpose of the delegation of procurement authority. This slide is just a slide of the resources available to you. So again, the EIS website has a lot of information. EIS Interact website. So if you register to receive updates from Interact, the EIS Interact page, you will be notified by email of any changes or upcoming training or a whole lot of other things. And on the right-hand side of the slide, we have some courses that are available that you can take, which is the Telecommunications 101 and Intro to EIS Pricing Structures can be found at that URL. The FUG e-learning course, the MOPS e-learning. Now we're going to actually review the course material. We're going to answer a series of knowledge check questions. So please note, this is not the actual quiz. This is only a review of the course material. And to take the quiz, you'll need to select the Take a Quiz for CLP button that's located underneath this presentation on the IT Acquisition University. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question and then I'm going to pause while you think about the answer. And then I'll go over the correct answer. So knowledge check number 1. True or false? EIS includes access to billing and agency inventory at no additional cost. The correct answer is A, true. Knowledge check number 2. Which is a characteristic and benefit of using EIS? The correct answer is C. EIS provides for comprehensive solutions by allowing agencies to incorporate supplies and services integral to the effort. Knowledge check number 3. Which of the following is included in the list of mandatory services for EIS? The correct answer is E, all of the above. Knowledge check number 4. True or false? Both the TAA and the BAA clauses are included in the EIS contracts. The correct answer is A, true. Okay, knowledge check number 5. Which of the following is not a characteristic of an EIS contract? The correct answer is C, 10-year base period with 2-year options. EIS has a 5-year base period with 2 5-year option periods. Knowledge check number 6. Which of the following is a responsibility of the OCO or authorized official when ordering from EIS? The correct answer is F, all of the above. Knowledge check number 7. Which of the following is the final step in the EIS acquisition process? The correct answer is B, administration. Knowledge check number 8. True or false? Service orders must be within scope of the task order, EIS contract, and not exceed funding on the task order. The correct answer is A, true. Knowledge check number 9. True or false? Before issuing a task order on EIS, agency OCOs or authorized officials must complete training and receive a DPA. The correct answer is A, true. Knowledge check number 10, true or false. Requesters who do not have a .gov or .mil email address must submit a copy of their warrant as a federal contracting officer or authorized official designation to EIS_DPA@gsa.gov before they will be considered for a DPA. The correct answer is A, true. Knowledge check number 11. Which of the following is included in the DPA process? The correct answer is E, all of the above. Knowledge check number 12. Choose all that are correct. A DPA, the correct answer is D. Both A and B are correct. Okay, this brings us to the close of our training session. Please remember that in order to receive CLPs, you will need to select the Take a Quiz for CLP button that is located below the presentation and pass the quiz with a 70% or greater. So please submit any questions that you have to the email address on screen, which is eistcc.support@gsa.gov, and copy me, Janida Borba, at gsa.gov. Please reference the IT Acquisition University EIS DPA self-paced training in the subject line. So we hope you'll come away from this training with a good understanding of EIS and the roles and responsibilities that accompany having a DPA. Thank you very much.